look directly to the killer who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you, and you want to know what we know. And one day, you will. A question to you. What will those closest to you think of when they find out that you brutally murdered 2 little girls? 2 children. Only a coward would do such a thing. Give me just a second here. Seldom do I have prepared remarks, but today is different because I do not want there to be any confusion or ambiguity with what I will say. Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation.
Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we're going to be revisiting the case of Abby Williams and Liberty German, 2 young girls who lost their lives while out on a hike in their small town. Since uploading our initial coverage of this case last year, a man has been arrested, documents have been released, and we know a lot more about what occurred that February afternoon in 2017. However, we've been reluctant to revisit the story, given that both the prosecution and the victims' families have directly stated that they want to keep some of the information private to ensure justice is done in this instance. There have been countless criminal cases that have been hindered due to the intense media spotlight, and we do not want that to happen. After initially hearing about the updates to the trial, I was directed to the Voices for Justice podcast, featuring Kelsi German, Liberty's sister, and hearing her talk about the effects that this tragedy, alongside of some of the reporting around it, has had on the family. She discussed how her family has been targeted, how she has been accused of heinous things, and how the public spotlight of this crime has been both a blessing and a curse. If you're interested in hearing her perspective, I will leave that podcast episode linked in the description box down below. Kelsi has worked tirelessly to get justice for her sister and to make sure this case got the attention it deserved. And while some of the response has been respectful, some people have accused Kelsi of being involved in her sister's death and sent her entire family waves of harassment and abuse. The original judge presiding over the case had to recuse himself, going as far as to cite YouTube videos being made using pictures of him, his family, and threatening them over decisions being made in court. It's always my hope that this channel does not encourage any of that behavior, and while I know the audience I've cultivated is likely not involved in any of that, I wanted to wait to cover the updates on this case to be sure. With that said, we will be providing all the relevant updates to this story and going over the court documents that have been released as of June 30th. If you are looking for a full breakdown of events, I will leave our initial coverage linked in the description box down below. Now, let us begin. At approximately 1:35 p.m. on February 13th, 2017, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German were dropped off by Liberty's sister to go on a hike at the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana. It was an unseasonably warm day in the small town, and since the 2 friends had the day off from school, they wanted to go on a hike and document their day on social media. The girls documented their walk on Snapchat, but 30 minutes later, their accounts went dark. Liberty's father came to the trail at 3:15 p.m. to pick up the 2 girls and waited in the parking lot for them to appear, but they never returned. Annoyed, but thinking nothing of it, he walked the trail, calling out for the girls and calling other family members to come assist in the search. For the next 2 or so hours, the family believed the girls were just messing around and they had lost track of time or were being inconsiderate. But as the night began to fall, they felt an increased sense of urgency. At 5:30 p.m., just 4 hours after being dropped off at the hiking trail, the girls were reported missing. the police quickly organized a search of the area, stressing that it was the utmost priority to find the girls before nightfall, as neither girl was prepared for the harsh cold. The police told both families that they didn't suspect foul play. Rather, it was more likely that one or both girls had fallen and hurt themselves. Along with a physical search effort, the police tried pinging the girls' cell phones into the evening hours but had no success in finding them, leading them to believe that the girls' phones were either dead or turned off. At 11:45 p.m., the police called off their search, citing that having people continue the search on the uneven terrain in the dark was incredibly dangerous. At this point in time, Sheriff Latzenby told WRTV they had no reason to believe that the girls were in imminent danger and that the crews would resume their search in the morning. At 10 a.m., the search resumed, and by 12:45 p.m., the Delphi fire chief announced that they had found Libby and Abby, calling the discovery not good.
I'm Riley. I'm with the Indiana State Police. I'm the Public Information Officer from the Lafayette Post.
Steve Mullen, Delphi Police Department, Chief of Police.
Topol, Islandby, Carroll County Sheriff.
Basically, we're going to make this, it's going to be short and sweet. We don't have that much at this point in time. Basically, what we've got, we have found two bodies. Is that the Sugar Creek?
Deer Creek.
Deer Creek, sorry. In Deer Creek, about a mile east of town. We are investigating this as a crime scene. We suspect foul play. We have not made positive identification of the two bodies, so we're not going to be releasing any information on them at this point in time. We've got the Indiana State Police is assisting the Carroll County Sheriff's Department and the Delphi City Police Department in the investigation here. We also have the FBI Crime Scene Investigation Group here out of Indianapolis. And one thing the family asked us to do is to thank all the communities around Delphi and the people here in Delphi for assisting in attempting to locate these the two young children that were missing earlier. They just wanted to say thank you to those people, and thank you. They were just wanted to express their gratitude toward the hard work that was done in helping search for these children.
Has the search been called off for these two teenagers?
Not officially, because we have not positively identified the bodies at this point in time.
The following day, the Indiana police released a photo of a man who had been on the trail around the same time as the girls. They didn't release any other information about the man, but asked the public for any tips to his identity. The public responds with hundreds of tips, naming various men as the possible person in the photo. But due to the photo's poor quality, the police are not able to glean any valuable information from the photo. 4 days later, on February 19th, the police officially named the man in the photo as being a prime suspect in the case. Shortly after that, they hold another press conference, at which point they state that the photo was actually a screenshot of a video taken by Liberty, and subsequently released an audio clip from the video she also took, where the man's voice can be heard.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
Once more, they asked the public for any tips as to who the man could be. Within 2 months, the Indiana State Police, alongside the FBI, investigate over 16,000 tips and partake in 500 interviews, one of which was the man who was charged with the crime. September 2017, Daniel Nations, a convicted sex offender who had been in the area of the crime, was declared a person of interest. Nations had been arrested in Colorado Springs after threatening several hitchhikers with a hatchet, and given that he'd been living near Delphi at the time, detectives working on the Delphi investigation traveled to Colorado to interrogate Daniel. However, Daniel would later be cleared of any involvement in the crime. 2 years after the murders, with very few updates, the investigators would release a new sketch of the suspect, this one radically different from the original, as well as new audio of the man speaking and a video of the man walking over the bridge, all of which had been taken from Libby's phone. Once more, they hoped that this would reignite public interest and point them in the direction of the person who was behind the murder. During this time, the German and Williams families would make multiple public appearances to try and raise awareness about the case. Specifically, Kelsi German would post on social media to drive eyes to the case. and ask anyone to come forward with information. While these tactics were effective, it also led to multiple people trying to embed themselves in the case by leaving false tips and harassing the victims' families repeatedly. December of 2021, nearly 5 years after the girls were killed, the Indiana State Police would ask the public for any information regarding a social media profile operating under the name Anthony_Shots. This profile used images of a male model in order to catfish multiple minors into sexually explicit conversations, and had also attempted to obtain the addresses of multiple young girls in order to meet them. This account had been one of the last people to talk to Abby and Libby, and eventually the account was traced back to a man by the name of Keegan Anthony Klein. However, nearly a year later, another announcement would be made. On October 26, 2022, 50-year-old Richard Allen would be arrested. Richard had been a longtime resident of the town with only 3,000 residents and worked as a pharmacy technician in a local CVS. Both the Williams and German families had been serviced by Richard in the time following the girls' murders, and he had even printed photos for their memorial service. His family home, which he shared with his wife, was less than 5 minutes' drive from where Abby and Libby had been found murdered. Everyone in the small town knew Richard to some degree. To most, he was just the guy who worked at the CVS, a constant fixture in the community, someone who seemed normal enough to those around him, but to others, he was a longtime friend. When Allen's arrest was made public, people quickly found pictures he had taken and posted on social media, standing in front of the police sketch of the killer. For years, Allen had been surrounded by memorials of the girls and had put up wanted posters depicting his own face, and for years he got away with it. But it's almost nonsensical as to how that occurred. The following is the probable cause affidavit, as made public by the court. On February 14, 2017, Victim 1 and Victim 2 were found deceased in the wood approximately 0.2 miles northeast of the Monon High Bridge Trail in Carroll County. Their bodies were located on the north side of the Deer Creek. Interviews were conducted with 3 juveniles. They advised they were on the Monon High Bridge Trail on February 13, 2017. They advised they were walking on the trail toward Freedom Bridge to go home when they encountered a male walking from Freedom Bridge toward the Monon High Bridge. The first juvenile described the male as kind of creepy and advised he was wearing like blue jeans, a really like blue jacket, and his hair was gray, maybe a little brown, and he did not really show his face. She advised the jacket was a duck canvas type jacket. Advised she said hi to the male, but he just glared at them. The second juvenile recalled him being in all black and covering his mouth. She described him as not very tall, with a bigger build. She said he was not bigger than 5'10". The third juvenile advised he was wearing a black hoodie, black jeans, and black boots. She stated his hands were in his pockets. One of the girls showed investigators photographs she took on her phone while she was on the trail that day. The photographs included a photo of the Monon High Bridge taken at 12:34 p.m. and another one taken at 1:26 p.m. of the bench east of the Freedom Bridge. One of the girls advised after she took the photo of the bench, they started walking back towards the Freedom Bridge. She advised that was when they encountered the man who matched the description of the photograph taken from Victim 2's video. One of the girls described the man she encountered on the trail as wearing a blue or black windbreaker jacket. She advised the jacket had a collar and he had his hood up from the clothing underneath his jacket. She advised he was wearing baggy jeans and was taller than her. She advised her head came up to approximately his shoulder. She stated her friend said hi to the man and he said nothing back. She stated he was walking with a purpose, like he knew where he was going. She stated he had his hands in his pockets and kept his head down. She advised she did not get a good look at his face, but believed him to be a white male. The girls advised after encountering the male, they continued their walk across Freedom Bridge and the old railroad bridge over Old State Road 25. Investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer who interviewed Richard Allen in 2017. The narrative stated, Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 hours to 15:30 hours. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak to them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead, however, did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photo or video. Potential follow-up information. Who were the three girls walking in the area of Freedom Bridge? Investigators believe Mr. Allen was referring to the former Child Protective Services building, as there was not a Farm Bureau building in the area, nor had there been. Investigators believe the females he saw included the aforementioned juveniles due to the time they were leaving the trail, the time he reported getting to the trail, and the description they gave. Investigators discovered Richard Allen owned two vehicles in 2017, a 2016 black Ford Focus and a 2006 gray Ford 500. Investigators observed the vehicle that resembled Allen's 2016 Ford Focus on the Hoosier Harvestor video at 1:27 p.m., traveling westbound on CR 300 North, in front of the Hoosier Harvestor, which coincided with his statement that he arrived around 1:30 p.m. at the trails. Investigators note witnesses described the vehicle parked at the former Child Protective Services building as a PT Cruiser, small SUV, or smart car. Investigators believe those descriptions are similar in nature to a 2016 Ford Focus. On October 13, 2022, Richard Allen was interviewed again by investigators. He advised he was on the trails on February 13, 2017. He stated he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge and that he went on to the Monon High Bridge. Richard Allen further stated he went onto the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish. Later in his statement, he said he walked onto the first platform on the bridge. He stated then he walked back, sat on a bench on the trail, then left. He stated he parked his car on the side of an old building. He told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. He advised he may have been wearing some head covering as well. He further claimed he saw no one else except for the juvenile girls he saw east of the Freedom Bridge. He told investigators that he owns firearms and they are at his home. Richard Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, also spoke to investigators. She confirmed that Richard did have guns and knives at the residence. She also stated that Richard still owns a blue Carhartt jacket. On October 13, 2022, investigators executed a search warrant of Richard Allen's residence. Among other items, officers located jackets, boots, knives, and firearms, including a Sig Sauer Model P226 40 caliber pistol with serial number U625-627. Between October 14, 2022 and October 19, 2022, the Indiana State Police Laboratory performed an analysis on Allen's Sig Sauer Model 9-226. The laboratory performed a physical examination and classification of the firearm, function test, barrel, and overall length measurement, test firing, ammunition component characterization, microscopic comparison, and NIBIN. The laboratory determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of victim 2's body had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's Sig Sauer Model P226. Investigators then ran the firearm and found that the firearm was purchased by Richard Allen in 2001. Richard Allen voluntarily came to the Indiana State Police Post on October 26, 2022. He spoke with investigators and stated that he never allowed anyone to use or borrow the Sig Sauer Model P226 firearm. When asked about the unspent bullet, he did not have an explanation of why the bullet was found between the two bodies of Victim 1 and Victim 2. He again admitted that he was on the trail but denied knowing Victim 1 or Victim 2 and denied any involvement in their murders. Carroll County Sheriff Detective has been part of the investigation since it started in 2017. He has had an opportunity to review and examine evidence gathered in this investigation. He, along with other investigators, believe the evidence gathered shows that Richard Allen is the male subject seen on the video from Victim 2's phone, who forced the victims down the hill. Further that, the victims were forced down the hill by Richard Allen and led to the location where they were murdered. Richard had been seen by multiple people on the trail, wearing the same outfit that the man in the photograph had been wearing, and when he had been spoken to in 2017, admitted to being on the trail at the exact time the girls had been killed. He went so far as to describe the outfit he'd been wearing, which perfectly matched the outfit pictured by Liberty German. His car had been seen by multiple people. He was caught on the security camera in the store's parking lot after parking said car, and he had access to a gun that matched the unspent round that was found between the girls' dead bodies, and yet for years he was never properly looked into. Anonymous sources have claimed that Allen wasn't properly looked into due to clerical error, and that his original interview, where he admitted that he'd been on the bridge that day in the same outfit as Bridge Guy, was not properly placed in the correct database. For years, the investigation was looking into who the Bridge Guy was, despite Allen's nearly direct admission that it was him. The circumstantial evidence against Allen was overwhelming, and Allen was quickly brought in and charged with the murders. The original judge assigned to the case was Carroll County Circuit Court Judge Benjamin A. Diner. Upon looking over the facts, he made the decision to transfer Allen from a small county jail to a state prison, given the horrific nature of his crimes, and the public attention being paid to the trial. The public's interest in this case, alongside the crimes, meant that Allen would likely be targeted in prison prior to going to trial and that his safety was at risk. However, the decision proved to be unpopular, as mere hours afterwards, Judge Diner recused himself from the case, citing the public's bloodlust of information. He cited that in the hours that followed his decision, images of his family had been posted on social media, with people making direct threats against them because he was protecting Allen. His recusal came with an admonishment to the public about this case, asking people to calm down so that the legal system could work the way it was intended. Following Judge Diner's recusal, Judge Fran Gull was appointed to preside over the case. Shortly thereafter, Allen wrote the following letter to the judge in this case. In the cause listed above, I, Richard M. Allen, hereby throw myself at the mercy of the court. I am begging to be provided with legal assistance and a public defender or whatever help is available. At my initial hearing on October 28, 2022, I asked to find representation for myself. However, at the time, I had no clue how expensive it would be just to talk to someone. I also did not realize what my wife and I's immediate financial situation was going to be. We have both been forced to immediately abandon employment, myself due to incarceration and my wife for her personal safety. She has had to abandon our house for her own safety. With what little reserve there is, will fail to maintain the original residence. Again, I throw myself at the mercy of the court. Please provide me whatever assistance you may. Thank you for your time in this most urgent matter. Following his letter, Allen was given 2 court-appointed attorneys, Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rozzi. Baldwin and Rozzi quickly set out to create a legal defense for Richard, focusing on the fact that the majority of the evidence against him was circumstantial and directly questioned how the unspent round was matched to Allen's own weapon. The following is their initial statement. As Rick Allen's attorney, we have received multiple requests from local and national media for interviews and comment since the unsealing of the probable cause affidavit. It would be virtually impossible to comply with these requests and continue to focus on the merits of Rick's defense. Therefore, we offer up these thoughts. We do not want to try this case in the media, and we intend to adhere to the Indiana rules of professional conduct that provide guidance on pretrial publicity. However, the police and prosecutor's office have conducted many press conferences over the 5+ years of this investigation and following our client's arrest. On the other hand, Rick's ability to assert his innocence has been reduced to only one short post-hearing press conference. Accordingly, we feel it appropriate, necessary, and within the bounds of our rules of professional conduct to make a few comments concerning the probable cause affidavit in Rick's defense. Rick is a 50-year-old man who has never been arrested nor accused of any crime in his entire life. He is innocent and completely confused as to why he has been charged with these crimes. The police did not contact Rick after Libby German and Abby Williams went missing. Rather, Rick contacted the police and voluntarily discussed being on the trail that day. Like many people in Delphi, Rick wanted to help any way he could. Rick contacted the police to let them know that he had walked on the trail that day, as he often did. Without Rick coming forward, the police probably would not have had any way of knowing that he was on the trail that day. Rick volunteered to meet with a conservation officer outside of the local grocery store to offer up details of his trip to the trail on the day in question. Rick tried to assist in the investigation and told the police that he did recall seeing 3 younger girls on the trail that day. His contact with these girls was brief and of little significance. Rick does not recall if this interaction with the conservation officer was tape recorded, but believes that the conservation officer scribbled notes on a notepad as Rick spoke to him. After Rick shared his information with law enforcement officials, he went back to his job at the local CVS and didn't hear from the police for more than 5 years. The next time Rick heard from the police was in October 2022. This was approximately 2 weeks before a contested sheriff's election and within days of a federal lawsuit filed against Carroll County Sheriff's Office by its former second-in-command, Michael Thomas. In the lawsuit, Thomas claims that he, Thomas, had made suggestions and offered assistance in the investigation of a high-profile child homicide investigation, but those suggestions and offers were rejected by the sheriff. Thomas further claimed that the sheriff and others in the department feared the disagreements with Thomas would become politicized as a result of the political campaign for sheriff. Thomas claims in the suit that he was ultimately demoted and replaced by Tony Leggett, who later that year won the 2022 election for sheriff. Furthermore, Thomas claims he was also removed from high-profile cases. Rick was ultimately arrested on or about October 28, 2022. In the 5+ years since Rick volunteered to provide information to the police, Rick did not get rid of his vehicle or his guns and did not throw out his clothing. He did not alter his appearance. He did not relocate himself to another community. He did what any innocent man would do and continued with his normal routine. The probable cause affidavit seemed to suggest that a single magic bullet is proof of Rick's guilt. It is a bit premature to engage in any detailed discussions regarding the veracity of this evidence until more discovery is received, but it is safe to say that the discipline of a tool mark identification, ballistics, is anything but science. The entire discipline has been under attack in courtrooms across the country as being unreliable and lacking any scientific validity. We anticipate a vigorous legal and factual challenge to any claims by the prosecution as to the reliability of its conclusions concerning the single magic bullet. On Rick's behalf, we argued to have the PCA unsealed. Rick has nothing to hide. As importantly, we were hoping that we would receive tips that would assist us in proving up his innocence. Not surprisingly, we have been inundated with tips from a variety of sources, all of which will be vetted by our team. Although it is the burden of the prosecutor to prove Rick's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the defense team looks forward to conducting its own investigation concerning Rick's innocence. We appreciate those that have reached out to support his cause. Prosecutor mentioned, at the last hearing, his beliefs that others may have been involved in the killing, yet there was no mention in the PCA about a second suspect involved in the killing. The defense is confused by such discrepancies in the investigation and will be in a better position to respond as more discovery is received. Rick Allen owned a Ford Focus in February of 2017. His Ford Focus is not in any way similar to the distinctive look of the PT Cruiser or Smart Car that was described by the witnesses. It seems that the CCSD is trying to bend facts to fit their narrative. At this point in time, we have received very limited information about this case and look forward to having something more to view than that which was offered up in the sparse PCA. Moving forward, it is our intent to scrutinize the discovery as it is received and give the necessary attention to the volumes of tips that we are receiving. To the extent we continue to discover information that points to Rick's innocence, we will offer up this information to the public, so long as we are not prohibited from doing so as a result of the recent request by the prosecutor for a gag order by the Indiana Rules of Professional Conduct. The prosecution for the case pushed back against the defense's statement, stating that their case against Allen is incredibly solid and directly stating that they look forward to trial. With the court documents being sealed to the public, there was little to no information being reported for some time. That is, until June 28, 2023, when a journalist, Ein Kane, and attorney Kevin Greenlee, who co-host the Murder Sheet podcast, worked with an attorney to file a motion to unseal the documents in Carroll County. On June 28, 2023, Judge Francis Gohl decided to release dozens of other documents that had been mistakenly sealed, and it was revealed to the public that Richard Allen had confessed to the murder multiple times over. Prosecutors claim in an April 20th filing that Allen admitted that he committed the offenses that he is charged with, no less than 5 times while talking to his wife and his mother on the public jail phones available at the Indiana Department of Corrections. The document reads, on April 3, 2023, Richard M. Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard M. Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard M. Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. Following the call, prosecutors alleged that Allen suddenly began acting erratically. Allen was wetting down paperwork he had gotten from his attorneys and eating it. He was refusing to eat and refusing to sleep. He would go days on end refusing to sleep. He further broke the tablet that he used for text messages and phone calls. He went from making up 2 phone calls a day as of April 3, 2023, to not making any phone calls at all. To date, Richard M. Allen still has not made a phone call since April 3, 2023. Allen's attorneys argued that his incriminating statements are unreliable due to his diminished mental capacity, claiming that he was being held in conditions akin to those of a prisoner of war. That request was granted by Judge Gull 2 weeks later. As of time of writing, that is all the information that has been released about the case. The trial date has been pushed back, but it's likely that within the next couple of years, we will know what happened to Libby and Abby, and we will see the person responsible for their deaths in jail. If you have made it to this part in the video, thank you for watching. Consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more of our true crime content. If there's a video you would like to see made, or a case you would like to see more attention brought to, email me at dreading.official@gmail.com. With all of that said, have a great day and remember to stay safe.